Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Welcome to a very special Crimson Cowl Comic Club creator interview. I'm Anthony.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
And he was Jim. Welcome to a very special interview episode, everybody. We are joined here by a very special guest. We have comic creator Winston Gambro. Winston, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Definitely. Happy to have you here. What we're going to do in this special interview is hang out with Winston, get to know him, figure out, what he's here to promote. But before we do any of that kind of stuff, I like to kind of go back and kind of figure out what kind of comic fan you are and kind of dive into the past and basically start it off by saying, what got you into comics? Do you have like the earliest memory of finding a comic book?
Yeah, really, it's kind of odd. I didn't start with a comic book. There's these big white Marvel books that kind of collect the past of the superheroes, summarize their powers, their villains, their major arcs. And I just had a Spider-Man one that I read cover to cover over and over. So I have like this deep knowledge of Spider-Man lore, but it ends in like 2006 when the book was published. So from there, I always like superheroes and comics. Then in high school, my art teacher was a big comic nerd, and he encouraged me to kind of reach outside of superheroes. And he got me into 100 Bullets, which is a Vertigo title that I just adored and still love. And then from there, I started following the creators and figuring out just how the industry worked. And I loved it ever since.
Cool. Yeah, and you definitely named some there, but is there any like specific kind of genres of story that you specifically follow, or is it just kind of a mixed bag if you want to talk about that?
I usually follow the creator more than the genre. I will say I'm a sucker for a lot of action and a lot of heart. Like if you can make me laugh with it during an awesome action scene and then make me cry at the end, that's the ideal book.
There you go. Excellent. And now kind of diving into the creative process, you said that you're following creators. That's kind of where you go in the industry, but you also are a creator. You are a writer and an artist. And do you have any early memories of when that started, whether it was in childhood or adulthood? And if you can kind of speak on both the writing and the drawing.
Yeah, even as a kid, I remember coming up with stories and just loving storytelling. Uh, like most kids, I don't think I ever finished it or wrote any of it down, but I always had like narratives going in my head, and that was a blast. I doodle them in the margins of my paper. Like every report card I've ever had, it definitely includes Winston draws way too much. Winston wasn't paying attention because he was drawing, and so much of that carried over. I tried to make a career out of it. But then I kind of really started taking it seriously in kind of mid college. So when I was like around 2021, and I just realized how much this is what I wanted to do. And so I started pushing myself more and devoting more time into it.
Cool. And yeah, the main thing that we're here to talk about is Haunted House, a Love Story, which is written and drawn by you. and I've got the creative team here lined up. Let's see here. 3D artist for the model house, which we'll get into, by Joshua J. Beck. We have color assist by Rob Cloma, wallpaper design by Julia Chawala. So that is the creative team for Haunted House: A Love Story. Can you give us a quick elevator pitch on what the story is?
Yeah, Haunted House Love Story is a 6-issue horror miniseries being published through Blood Moon Comics. Going to be published November 1st, but FOC September 15th. It is about a sentient house that falls in love with the person living within it. When that person falls for someone else, the house gets jealous and seeks vengeance. And then the miniseries kind of just continues from there as the house has to deal with its decisions.
Cool, cool. And the whole reason why you're here today is because you and I had met at Fan Expo in Chicago for August 2023. And to be extremely honest, when I'm going through Artist Alley at that specific point, when I was walking past your booth, I was kind of at a little faster pace because I'd kind of, reached a budget limit, and it was a long morning and afternoon in Artist Alley. There's so much good stuff there. And I had a specific mission this weekend where I started searching just for Creature from the Black Lagoon related stuff. Now, that has nothing to do with how you flagged me down. I just happened to walk by, and you were pretty quick to just say, "Hey, do you want a free, drawing your favorite comic character or superhero or something?" And I stopped. I'm like, "Well, that's an interesting tactic, to get me to actually stop in front of your table." And from that moment, you whipped out this business card that had a little space for a quick little sketch. I had requested Silver Surfer, one of my favorite superhero characters. And as you were sketching that, we were talking along and started flipping through your work. And I just got to say that was the perfect little move, basically, to get the attention. And I'm sure it's probably worked many a times, but I'm going to show some examples of cards that you've done that I pulled from your Instagram page. As I do that, if you just kind of want to talk about how you kind of came up with this idea, because I personally never seen it on a business card before, and it's definitely not, a strange thing for an artist to offer sketches and free sketches and things like that. But this particular style in a small business card was new to me. So as I show off the pictures, feel free to kind of talk about this whole thing and how this experience is for you.
Yeah, we'll do. So it all started before I was tabling at C2E2. I was like a fan for sure, and I was always trying to network. I was there for a 3-day weekend in the hotel, and I found out on Friday night that Saturday was going to be a meetup with other comic creators. And I'm like, oh, I don't even have business cards. I'm so unprepared. And what I did have was the Hyatt's notepad. So I ripped it up and I hand wrote my social, my name, my email. And I'm like, I'm aware it looks like garbage because it's a ripped up notepad. The only way I could figure out people maybe to have a slight bit of professionalism and to have people not throw it out as soon as they turn away from me was to draw on it. So I drew like a Batman, a Harley Quinn, just all the big popular characters. And the meetup went as well as it could have. And I would say, like, all right, you got Green Lantern or Harley Quinn. And they'd say, I like Green Lantern. I'm like, and there's your drawing. And, got a laugh. And so when I started tabling, I'm like, I should really go with that gimmick. And it has probably been responsible for 90% of my sales. Like, if I could suggest anything for someone tabling for the first time, it is get a gimmick, something that gets people to your table. I don't even have suggestions because I barely came up with this, but it is so useful. I get to interact with people as a conversation starter. I get to talk about your favorite character, your favorite franchise. People seem to be interested in it, but more importantly, while I'm drawing, they get to look through my stuff and I can talk about it. I can say why it's interesting. I can give the pitch, kind of the hook of it. And so much of that turns into them actually purchasing it, all because I can draw on a business card. Oh, plus they're less likely to throw it out.
Yeah, that is true. And like I said, I sent the picture of this to a couple friends right away, and I'm just like, I've never seen this before. I'm like, this is so cool, and obviously made me stop. I picked up one of your zines here, got your
Woo.
information, we talked, and here you are. Just 1 week later, and you're here on the Crimson Cowl Comic Club. So yeah, you made it big time now. I mean, this is from here, there's only one step up. It's Johnny Carson, and I'm not sure how much he airs the show anymore. So I mean, I think you did good. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, I do have a hard out at 5. I'm on Rogan after this.
yeah, of course, yeah, yeah, and the other thing too is on your Instagram, like each day you would show making a list of all of the sketches that you've drawn for people. So can you kind of talk about that? You said a little bit before we recorded about maybe so many Spider-Men, but feel free just kind of talking about that experience of maybe getting a character that you haven't drawn before, maybe getting a character that you've drawn for the 20th time. Just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I definitely there's a Spider-Verse truly out there, and it is people requesting me to draw Spider-Man a lot. I on average I will draw Spider-Man like 15 times a day. Saturday I did 20, and he is not the hardest character, but one of the most time consuming simply because his face has so much detail. Like you got to get each webbing right, his neck, his chest, and I only draw a bust. It is very, very time consuming versus something like Silver Surfer, which is, a person with some shadows on him. Then I've had weird requests. I've drawn a couple animals. Someone said just draw me a triangle, and they're my favorite person because that was very easy. Um, People say draw who I want, and I drew Batman so much in high school. Like on the margins of my notebook, I can probably draw him blindfolded. And then probably my least favorite is anime, just because I'm unfamiliar, so they then have to phonetically spell it for me.
Sure, yeah.
And once I get to the character, I'm usually not used to them. Like their proportions are different from American superheroes, which is my baseline. And sometimes their designs are very difficult. If anyone has heard of Genshin Impact, it's a very visually appealing anime style game, but every character has about 15 different layers and fabrics on them. So, especially if I can sense the person isn't interested in purchasing one of my things, I'm just like, I'm drawing 8 different scars on this guy, and they don't even want to look through a book.
Yeah, and you're working on such a small space too, so you got a limited canvas there. Um, we're going to dive into if there's any questions from the club here, just on you in general as a comic creator, or anything about your life before we dive into Haunted House proper. I'm going to set up with one question to allow people to jump in if they have something. Um, and it's going back to the idea of doing the conventions and being there. Like, how many have you done so far? Like, how long have you been on the con circuit?
Not super long. Think my first was 2021. And I've only done 3 big shows: C2E2, Fan Expo Chicago, and SuperCon in Miami. Then I've done like a variety of little shows like in libraries and breweries. So maybe like 10 total, 15.
Oh, cool. All right, we'll jump over to Katie if you got a question here.
Sure. So a little bit of a business question. I'm wondering how you chose that publisher for your book. What made them stand out?
I wish I had a fun idea. I sent it to a variety of publishers and they were interested. I think
Yeah.
it's a great match for the company. It's a horror-based publisher, so they're looking for a horror-based book, but
Yeah.
that's it.
Do you have an agent that you're working with, or are you just self-submitting?
I'm self-submitting.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank
cool.
you.
Let's jump over to Kirby.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody. I like to know if in your younger days, your early days, when you began getting into everything, is there anywhere that you're published? Did you send a picture to some comic and get it published? Did you send a little message and get it published, or something? Your first thing that ever got recognition?
I don't know if it's published. To be, yeah, never in like a magazine or a comic, but I was a big fan of Arrow back in college, that CW Green Arrow show, and I did some fan art for that. The actor posted it. Oh, James Gunn once reposted my Star-Lord fan art, and
Nice.
let me tell you, to go from nobody to getting retweeted by the director of a Marvel movie, it really changes how your phone reacts to Twitter.
Yeah.
It was just ding, 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 ding. But yeah, that's really the only kind of recognition I've gotten.
Cool. All right, we're gonna dive into Haunted House: A Love Story proper. You gave us, you're kind enough to give us a, I think it was 26-page preview. Is it a issue 1 preview out of 6?
Yeah.
And while we won't be, talking spoilers or anything like that, just kind of loosely talking, kind of promoting it, I'm gonna go show off some sample pages. But if you kind of want to talk about how you came up with this idea, and how it went from being an idea to what we end up reading. And while you're doing that, if anybody had any questions, feel free to start raising the hands, but I'll show off some pages as you're talking, Winston.
Cool. So I was just thinking about haunted houses, and kind of usually in fiction, all the spooky stuff is due to a ghost within it, a person died within it, or maybe the house was built on a unfortunate place. And I don't know, I just kind of thought, what if the house itself was mad at the person, and that's why it's acting the way it is. And so from there, I was like, what else could the house be doing? Could it fall in love with the person living in it? And that's really the crux of the story, that this house falls for and then gets possessive of the resident.
Cool. Yeah. When going through and reading the story, now when we go through previews, we do a thing on this show here. We'll go through the catalogs, talk about the books that we're getting excited about, kind of let people know. We'll kind of create club discussion picks from that. If we realize, hey, we got 3 people that are excited to read the same thing, then we kind of do a bigger spotlight on it and stuff. And I love the tag with it being a love story. Like if it was haunted house, even if it had like an equally scary, ominous subtitle or something, it's probably pretty easy to be like, all right, another haunted house story, ghost story, whatever. But just having the haunted house love story, I think, is such a perfect combination for the name. Was there any like alternate titles, or was it always like, was that a set deal for you when you were doing this?
I'd say, yeah, that was always kind of a set deal. I am at the point in my career, the very, very, very beginning, where I need something that just grabs attention, and I needed a title that would instantly say what the premise is.
Oh, cool. Kirby?
I don't know if I really have a question. I assume that like you had some inspiration from like Shining and stuff like that, or other related.
Like other, I'd seen Hill House on Netflix, Bly Manor on Netflix. I actually haven't seen The Shining. I've seen the Simpsons parody, if that counts.
Did you see House and House 2 at all? Or they kind of had a house
not.
with a portal in it? That's a good one to check out too.
How about House, that the medical show House with Hugh Laurie? Have you seen House? MD.
I did see House, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of, I could see a lot of inspiration. No, go ahead, Kirby.
Yeah, issue 3 has a lot of medical mysteries being solved, so you'll see the inspiration.
Hey, we have a doctor right away in the first issue, so yeah, it checks out. Kirby.
But yeah, I always wanted my own house in the middle of the mountains, or my own island, of course. But I'm the type of person that I can honestly say probably every house I've lived in, I've walked around in silent times and talked to it. So if the house was haunted, it could have done little things to show representation that it is alive or something like that. But but yeah, it's because I know the house does have some abilities to do some stuff. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but yeah,
the house can interact with people, and I'm sorry yours didn't.
I hoped, but never happened.
Jump over to David.
Okay, and I brought this up pre-recording here, but one of the things that I noticed was in the credits for it, it has 3D artist, model house, Joshua J. Beck. So I'm looking through this and I'm going, but I don't quite get how the 3D model house comes into play here. So can you tell us about that? And I think you might have a little bit of a show and tell
Yeah, I do.
here for that.
So when I started this project, I knew like this house was going to be in every page nearly. And a big part of it was I don't want to have to work out the perspective of all these chimneys, all these balconies every time. So my friend who had taught himself 3D design in Blender over COVID, I reached out and I said, hey, could I commission you to make this house? I drew it out, all four sides, top, bottom, and he gave me a very fair rate. I commissioned it, and then now I have this model that I can spin three ways, and every exterior shot of the house I would just simply screenshot and then trace over in the actual drawing. So I would in a lot of penciled pages I will have like the background and the people, but just a white square of where I'm going to copy and paste the house to trace over when I digitally ink.
Okay. I think that's actually a really cool idea, because like a lot of artists will have some sort of a 3D model that they'll look at, like one of those little figures that they can pose or whatever to kind of go off of. But in this case, really the main character of this story is a house. So, so yeah, how do you do that? How do you have that to look at unless there's a house in existence that you can take pictures of or look at and whatever? So I think doing it that way is really an awesome idea.
Thank you. Yeah, one of my favorite artists right now, Greg Smallwood, he showed for that Human Target book from DC that to keep consistency of the face, he had a 3D model that he made in ZBrush of their faces that he would just copy and paste over. So I'm like, oh, so it's all right to do that. If it looks that good at the end of the day, I think it's a cool method.
Yeah, friend of the show, Matt Rogers, who is the co-creator and artist of an upcoming Keenspot book, Happy Astronaut, he has a 3D model that was designed for a spaceship that he's able to kind of position, and kind of does that same kind of method. Because yeah, if you're dealing with something like that, if you did a story about a horse or something, is somebody going to want to keep drawing, the horse or a car and this and that. So definitely
Yes.
there's a lot of good techniques and tools to kind of get the work done. And
Yeah, oh yeah. I love that it's becoming a more common thing, and artists are kind of being more comfortable in revealing that they use 3D models or trace it. Like it is so hard to get a daily page out. Any tool can help.
yeah, so if you're not Jack Kirby, that's the only exception basically. So we do have a question from Jim, but just to stay on topic with the credits, and you had also mentioned before the show wallpaper design by Julia Chawala, if we're pronouncing that right. Can you speak about how where the wallpaper design came into it?
Sure. I was just looking for some royalty-free wallpaper to use in the backgrounds of shots, and I stumbled across her DeviantArt, I believe. I've never met her before, and she had just taken some great photos of Victorian wallpapers. So I reached out and said, hey, could I use these for a comic? She replied quickly, sure, if you credit me. So thank you, Julia. And now it made my comic all the more beautiful.
Definitely. Jim talks about one of his favorite series is Harrow County. He's getting a strong vibe from that, and particularly the art style of Tyler Crook did. So it's one of his favorite horror series. Have you checked that out? Is there anything, or is just kind of maybe speak on like maybe horror comics if you don't have any attachment to that, just horror in general in comic books.
Yeah, sure. I haven't read Harrow County. I do love Tyler Crook. He did that Stone King comic I was a huge fan of. Then horror in general, I love everything Lemire's been doing with Andrea Sorrentino. Yeah, like speaking of people being able to pump out work, my God, it seems like every time you look away, they've got 3 new horror books and they're all amazing.
Mini series, graphic novels.
Oh yeah. I love the the ambiance they're able to do. Lock and Key, I'm a huge fan of, kind of in the same vein of Haunted House. Everything James Tynan the fourth is doing, and then oh yeah, Tales from the Dark Side. Oh, is that Joe Hill? Oh, nice. And then kind of on the other, it's still horror, but Oni Press, and full disclosure, I work for Oni Press, and I'm designing this book. It's called Dwellings. It's drawn in the style of old, I believe, Harvey comics.
Yeah, we've myself and Kirby have read some issues of that. We've talked about it on the show.
I've got the first 5 or 6.
We did like
Yeah.
when we did an online campaign. I forget through what publisher it was, but now it's in the preview. So yeah, we're very familiar with that.
That's awesome.
Oh, awesome! Yeah. I'm designing like the collected version that Oni's doing. So yeah, if you want horror, like I kickstarted it before I started at Oni too, because it looks so much unlike any comic on the shelves. It really feels like something you'd find in a flea market.
Cool. If anybody has any last questions about Haunted House, in the meantime, if you had any final statements, just any kind of final plug for Haunted House, a love story in general, you could start with that, and then we'll jump over to Katie.
Cool. Haunted House love story. Yeah, 6-issue horror miniseries. If you like horror, if you like romance, I really think you'll like it. If you want a free preview, you can just DM me, because I think you'll like it. And you can just stop by your local comic shop and ask for your first issue, shipping out November 1st.
Yeah, I gotta say I was pretty into it. I love the style, like with all the creative teams that you mentioned. Like Beautiful was definitely a good example of that, of just the entire book together. And it what I like too about issue 1 is that like you could probably taken the first like half of issue 1, and that could just be like several issues. Like I like the pacing of it, is what I'm saying. I think a lot of people would have kind of really kind of drawn it out, and I really like the pace of it, and it kind of really gave you quite a bit in that first issue. So I'm real curious what, we had a little, I won't say what it is, but a little premise and tease on what would come in future comics. So I was very intrigued, and I got to say I'm hooked. So
Thank you.
Just to interrupt, and I'm sorry because I know Katie's waiting, but
no,
it's
you're
right
good.
on topic there.
You're good.
I just want to add in, like, so we got this free preview, and I was talking about it after reading it to my wife, who I've tried to kind of get into comics, but she hasn't really got there. And I just told her the whole premise of this, and she's just completely fascinated by it. So now she wants to read this thing, and she's not even a comic book reader. So great story, and it is something that's a little bit different and might be interesting to people who might not even normally read that type of book.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that.
cool, Katie.
I have a question. What's your favorite dinosaur?
Ankylosaurus.
Yeah,
No hesitation, just jumped right into it.
that's awesome. Mine is a plesiosaur.
Nice.
Mine is Earl Sinclair from the TV show Dinosaurs.
Oh,
Him
okay.
specifically.
Nice.
He's not the mama of the show. I just want to, remind everybody.
Not the mama.
Not the mama.
Cool. So yeah, that is basically your pitch for Haunted House, a love story. We'll have all the plugs and everything at the end of the show, but we still have a little more to talk about with you, because I have some more things on the share screen here, and these were just kind of picking up some examples, whether they be art pages or posters and things. So as I bring some of these up, if you can kind of talk about some of this, I found a Wonder Woman piece here. Like there's a couple of these kind of posters. Are these just fan art? Were they used for anything? Feel free to talk about whatever I show up here. So
Yeah, just fan art, something to sell at conventions. Yeah, this is just a 11x17 poster I sell, but I still I did this, I don't even know, 6 years ago at this point. I still think it's pretty cool. And I had one little girl say, "Mommy, what happened to her body?"
That's awesome. Well, you have to read the story to find out. That if you get hired by DC someday, then you'll tell the tale of the missing body. So
Yeah, she has invisible jet. Why not an invisible abdomen?
yeah, there we go. And you've talked about your love of Spider-Man and such, so I assume it's a similar
It's
story there. But when picking these, whether it's picking Wonder Woman and Spider-Man, we've already heard Spider-Man, but like, so some of the stuff that I'm showing, which you don't know what I'm about to show, so it's a complete, you know, it's a fun challenge here. But are these things that you're looking, being like, hey, I want to draw this, or this would be appealing because they're the popular characters? Feel free to talk on that.
I will say, yeah, it's a little bit more capitalistic that
Sure.
most of these posters are what I think will sell. Especially this one. This was right before No Way Home came out, so uh, people were very excited, including myself, and people didn't even know if the new Spider-Man were actually going to be in it, besides the rumors. But I took a chance, and I wanted to make a poster of the most popular hero for this upcoming movie, and so I threw all the villains in. Each circle is a different suit of this, and it paid off. People really responded well to it, even to this day, even a year after the movie came out.
Yeah, I think Spider-Man is the gift that's going to keep on giving no matter what. So. Now the next ones here aren't as quick of an explanation and obvious ones as our Wonder Woman and Spider-Man, but I pulled this off of your website as well. If you can talk about what we're looking at here.
Oh yeah, this is from the Batman, the Matt Reeves movie. Another poster to sell is just I really love the movie and kind of want something to have that ambiance. So they use red in all the marketings, and it's very shocking. So I wanted to only use that red. Like, this is eye dropped right from the poster. All the symbols you see are different riddle symbols that he used throughout the film. And then we got the cast, and I thought it was just a cool way to tie into the movie.
Definitely looks like something that would be just like a page. The other ones are obviously, single figure ones. So this one was rather interesting, and there's a reason why I pulled that one. The next thing here, we have a double show and tell. So I'll show what I have the page here for. And I assume my window is still visible for the video audience, but feel free to talk about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, this is the opening page of The Envelope, a comic I drew with Eddie Klinker. He was the writer, I was the artist. I was between projects, and we had been wanting to work together for a while, so we reached out, and he just said, "What do you want to draw?" And I said, "How about a spy thing?" So he came up with The Envelope. It's just this mini comic that about the world's best spy being imprisoned and forced to relive her best memories. I always loved Jim Steranko's Nick Fury run, like this, very psychedelic and unique spy comic. Like, who would have tied all those crazy patterns to a former World War II guy turned secret agent? And it was just such a unique visual, and so this is kind of my love letter to it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, Nick Fury inspiration. And while a spy genre isn't, personally one of my go-to genres, the art style is really what sold it for me. Is just because it is very trippy. Just kind of showing off some other pages there. Let me take the main screen off here, just in the meantime. But yeah, just all the different styles, because we keep the characters kind of going through different locations basically through this mind trippy type of torture. So there's just a lot of real awesome movement happening. So when I was flipping through this as you were drawing the Silver Surfer for me, this is the one that definitely caught my eye to make a purchase. And yeah, it was pretty darn good.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate that. I'm glad you liked it.
And then I got one more to show off here. My screen's real small, so I can't see exactly the detail on here. So feel free to talk us through this one.
So this is based on BioShock, the popular video game franchise, and it's just one of my favorite games of all time. Like, I love that world. It's, if you're not familiar, it takes place in an underwater city that, due to corruption and infinite other factors, it's fallen apart, and people have started getting addicted to this thing that gives them superpowers, but also makes them go crazy. So I while playing the game for the umpteenth time, I just came up with this story about a man trying to get his family out, and everything is going wrong as he tries to escape the city. And I'm like, oh, that'd be cool, but they don't make comic books about BioShock. So, if is everyone familiar with Daniel Warren Johnson and like his mini comics?
We talk
Yeah.
about him a lot, and I've talked about those books on this very show.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, nicest dude in the world for sure. And every year at C2E2, he'll have a new book of I know he's done 2 Star Wars and 1 Star Trek and maybe
Green
more,
Leader,
but
he's got Green Leader, Old Man Skywalker.
yeah, and I forget what the whatever the Star Trek one was, but
He's got a
just
wrestling one as
beautiful.
well.
Oh, cool. And to be frank, like he doesn't own the rights to those characters. And I'm like, well, how's he doing this? And I'm like, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it about BioShock?
Yeah.
And so
And his explanation, so if they're at the table, because I bought, now just not that turning this into a Daniel Warren Johnson fan fest, because that's what all the other
let's
episodes
do it.
But we first came to he came to our attention at the comic shop that David is digitally revisiting through this episode.
Basically, he's been standing right where I look like I'm sitting. Yeah.
So when you watch
Wow.
the video intro on the YouTube for Crimson Cowl Comic Club, the photo with David and Kurt, his business partner, and Daniel Warren Johnson, that photo is in the opening intro.
Oh, nice.
And when he had walked in, we didn't know who that person was, and he was just and he very casually pointed at a comic that one of I think the retailer incentives of Extremity, I think it was,
Yes, it was
the gold foil or whatever it was.
Yeah, Extremity #1, the retailer incentive exclusive that we had, because the value on that thing was, I forget what it was, over $100, and so we had it in the case up here by the counter, and he just kind of looked down and he goes, "That's my book."
And then he kind of walked off to the toy section, and I remember that moment. It would be, if there's only one memory I have at the end of my life, it's going to be that moment, because it was David and Kurt and myself, and we were positioned in a triangle format, and we're all just like looking at each other, and I'm going up to the book and I'm typing it in, just being like, "Who is this guy?" I have no idea who he was, and this is before he's doing all of his DC and Marvel work and stuff like that. So he's done a lot of indie comics, and and then once we looked into it, he is very happy to sign it, take a picture, and then every year at the Chicago convention, I'll revisit his table and just kind of remind him, like, "Hey, I was the guy on the couch that day," and then it turns out that him and I have a mutual painter friend, and so now there's a mission going back to the mini comics. Every time I'm there, he gives me one of his mini comics to hand off to his painter friend that shops at the store I manage and work at. And
Oh, cool.
with those mini zines, if you're at a Daniel Warren Johnson table, if you say, "Hey, how much is that?" and he just goes, whatever you want, and that's the whole idea, is that they're not for sale. But if you want to give him $5, $10, $20, then hey, you can have this on the side if you want. So it's almost like a tipping type of deal. And so yeah, that's
So yeah, we're a little familiar with him.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Heard of him.
we have one person in the waiting room, and it's a special guest. Is Daniel Warren? Oh wait, nope, he just left. Yeah, he thought this was word.
Oh.
But yeah, so but yeah, that's cool, and yeah, I'm glad I brought that up, because yeah, that's a fun little thing that we can all geek out on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see, I have one more question queued up, and we have Kirby raising his hand, so we'll jump into him. If anybody else has any, feel free to put your hand up before I get to the last question. And then Kirby.
I just wanted to mention, you did that one page for BioShock, and that's like, again, it's one of my top probably 2 to 3 games ever brought out in history. I bought them all singly. I just bought the whole set again now, not too long ago, digitally. I think you should pursue that, because I believe there's some wonderful stories that could be prequeled up and stuff. for that series, but right now
Yeah.
it's really big because they're doing Call of Duty, they're doing Witcher, they're doing Assassin's Creed comics, they're doing Gears of War comics. There's so many video game comics that have been coming out lately. I'd love to know if there's if there is a way for someone to get their hands on being able to do that. But yeah, that series could have a lot of fun directions to go.
I completely agree. Like, we've only had 2 games and it's already had such a cultural landmark, like 2 games within Rapture. And like, there
Yeah.
are so many stories to tell. We haven't even seen the whole city.
Yep. Yeah, it's it's just a
So
huge environment.
does Activision listen to this?
They will now. They will now. Oh, I just got a
We will
YouTube
hashtag 'em.
subscription notice. Yeah, Activision is now following us. Look at that. You just have to speak their name and they show up.
So Activision, that comic I drew, that was a joke. I don't actually make that. But if you want to make a comic, hit me up.
There you go. Yep, just go the Daniel Warren Johnson model with it. And now, since he had gotten to work with Star Wars and things like that, maybe he leans off of that a little bit as far as creating new stuff. Considering he actually tells Darth Vader stories now. But
It's pretty cool. Living the dream.
so jump over to David.
Yeah, so I guess I can put my hand down now. Jumping back over to Haunted House: A Love Story #1. The one thing that I noticed when reading this preview of it is that it didn't have the publisher information on here. So I don't know if that, once it's printed, will have that information on there. But you kind of mentioned that, and I'm sorry, the name actually of the publisher is escaping me right now because it's not on here.
Blood Moon Comics.
Blood Moon Comics. Okay, and I'm sure that we'll mention that again before this is over. So you actually went to them yourself, as sounds like you've done that for other projects as well. And I think because there's a number of people who may be listening or watching this that are creators or aspiring creators, I think a lot of them are pretty intimidated by that process of trying to submit their work. How has that been for you in general, and with this publisher?
So I guess it's been submitting to publisher has been all right. I just keep a spreadsheet that I maintain over the years. Every time I hear about any kind of publisher, whether big or small, I just add it to it. So whenever I have a book that's ready for publishing, I literally just go down the list. I have a link to their submission form and just slowly check them off, as you do have to customize each submission. Like, some need a cover letter, some need 5 pages of art, some need an entire issue. So that is usually pretty easy. And I don't really worry about getting turned down because the vast majority will. And it is rare to even get like an email saying this isn't for us. Like, even that I consider a positive because it means they looked at it. Like, it's cool just to have anyone look at your art. So I wouldn't, don't get intimidated by actually submitting your art. Because the worst thing they can say is no, and no one will go out of their way to say this book sucks.
Yeah. I love that tip of the spreadsheet. That is such a good idea. I'm going to pass that on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I keep a spreadsheet for literally everything comic related, like artists I want to work with, writers I want to work with, comic shops to call to ask them if they want to check out my stuff, podcasts to be on to promote my stuff. Spreadsheets keep me going.
Well, that's a perfect setup, talking about working with publishers and creators and such, because kind of the last kind of overall question I have is that, let's say the comic book publisher of your choice reached out to you, demanded to write, and they demanded it. They weren't saying, hey, would you like to do this? You're like, you have to do this. We need you to do this. To write and draw a story arc for them. Now, you've talked about favorite characters and this and that, but just off the cuff there, is there something that jumps into your mind where I have a 6-issue story for this very popular comic series or character?
I'd say BioShock. Yeah, maybe it's just because we're fresh on our mind, but that'd be so cool. I love Rapture. I love drawing that comic. Like, that's one of the most fun I've had drawing a comic ever. Because of the number of remarks I've done in people's books when they buy a copy, I can draw a Big Daddy nearly blindfolded. and he is not an easy character to draw. But yeah, BioShock for sure.
That actually reminded me, I was going to say this earlier because when I place an order with you, which will probably be on your Gumroad shop, which you'll talk about what's available there, I think I might have to request you to draw, Batman blindfolded. I think that will be, not you being blindfolded, but Batman being blindfolded. I think.
Oh, okay, okay. Ooh, that'd be a fun pitch. A Daredevil issue where the artist is blindfolded.
Yeah, there you go. Kirby.
Since you're on the publisher thing, is Blood Moon, do they just let you go with what you have, or do they throw suggestions of things they wanted you to change in that comic?
Conveniently, they just seemed to be on board. It was completely finished. Like I wasn't midway through the series or anything. So yeah, they didn't have any edits. We were just ready to roll. I guess just like on a technical size, I had to resize the pages, but just by like a quarter inch or something, just because the way I formatted them isn't right for their printer. But not a big deal.
Because I know I've read stuff from Blood Moon. I can't think of it right now, which comics they were, but yeah. And then Keen Spot's a big company for the creators that have been on previous episodes lately. So I know they give a few suggestions out from what I've noticed. But
oh, interesting.
Cool. All right, so I had mentioned your Gumroad shop. Can you kind of advertise? I assume that's your one-stop shop, maybe through the WinstonGambro.com. But basically, what do you offer through an online shop?
Oh, so I just had to look to make sure what I'm selling right now. My WinstonGambro.gumroad.com. Yeah, it's my one-stop shop. I've got my graphic novel Overflow. It's a cyberpunk mystery about how apathy is destroying the world. And then my two mini comics that are available are The Blank. It's about a detective investigating an impossibility. And as he starts to lose his mind, the pages fade away, words disappear. So you feel like you're losing your mind as well.
That's
We've
the one
already
with the
spoken about
thumbprint on, right? That one's got the thumbprint guy.
Yeah, someone has mistaken it for Slender Man, but no, it's a thumbprint on top of his suit. And then No Happy Endings in Rapture. That's the BioShock comic that we've discussed. So a man tries to escape the underwater city as it collapses. I've got two posters. I did these for some art shows in my local area, then sell them at conventions. One is How to Save the World, and it's kind of a mid-century modern pop culture vibe. How to save the world: be nice to others, recycle your bottles, eat the rich, plant a tree. And then I have a Simpsons typography poster. I have a Redbubble where I just make a lot of Simpsons t-shirts. I'm one of those nerds that quotes the Simpsons all the time. So this grid of typography is just every Simpsons t-shirt I sell, all these logos, all these quotes, all in one convenient poster. And lastly, I have the Radley Adventure Club pin and patch. They were part of a Kickstarter I did for Rex Radley Boy Adventurer. As a reward incentive, you could get a print, a patch, or a pin. I have since run out of the comics, but I still have a couple of patches and pins.
Cool. And the last one is Patreon. I don't know if that's an active thing for you, but do you have a plug for your Patreon?
Yeah, patreon.com/Winston Gambro. I post artwork as I finish it. I usually finish a page every 4-ish days. So if you want to see my stuff, literally the minute I finish it, it's all uploaded there. As well as like secret projects I'm working on. Like the current comic I'm drawing probably won't be published till 2024 at least, but you can be reading it as I draw it.
Cool. All right, sounds good. And all those links and everything will show up on the screen and be available for everyone to check out if they missed it. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. I think it was a fun conversation there. Showed off a lot. You got a lot going on. You've done a lot in a short amount of time. And yeah, definitely was a pretty good interview. So thanks for stopping me at the convention and just asking me, hey, do you want a free drawing of your favorite superhero? And I'm like, yes, sir. And then forcing me to look at your stuff and get to talk to you, because I think it benefited everybody here. So
yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was great. I'm glad you stopped for that drawing.
cool. And yeah, and this was an audition process, so you will probably be welcomed onto Cartoonist by Night to hang out and draw sometime. So that was one thing we were talking about. So yeah, this is just kind of the the audition process here. So yeah, that's gonna do it. And yeah, thanks for everybody for checking it out. Check out those links and check out the regular Crimson Cowl Comic Club as well. And yeah, all the links are at the end of the show. Thank you for watching. And David, do you have something to say to us?
Yes. To be continued.
Thank you, Slimer.
Happy and his pal, a robotic stowaway named Half, are on a mission. Find whoever stole Half's missing pieces and get those pieces back. After promising each other that they'd pursue even the faintest of clues to the furthest of corners, our spacefaring duo have bounced from one adventure to the next, hoping that eventually they'll end up in the right place at the right time. Their next stop, a tiny little oasis on a giant planet of star-spewing volcanoes, a place where robots melt and humans bake, and magic-imbued stars rule the land, or so they think. Happy Astronaut is perfect for readers of all ages, filled with action, humor, and heart. This debut issue will have many exciting covers to choose from, including a blank sketch cover variant to commission your very own cover,